Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about this interview from Inverse, which is Power Rangers is still TV's most unusual Japanese-American hybrid. I kind of get that. But before we jump into this interview, there's only I think one key part that I kind of really want to talk about. And yeah, but before we do, if you want to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as that cheeky notification bell. We're trying to reach 18,000 subscribers. This is from Bennett, and basically the whole article is linked in the description so you can check. It's quite interesting, so kind of reading over it. It seems like they're doing quite a lot of stuff before Dino Fury and stuff. And most of these sorts of questions talk about what they're doing. But there was one article. I really love these pictures, by the way. Like, these pictures are absolutely stunning. I really like them. I also really like the fact that you can see stuff in their eyes. I always find that really funny. Like, we're going to defeat you, Vengex. Filming crew. I always love it. I think it's this part here that I kind of really want to talk about, that kind of like caught my eye. Power Rangers is one of the few kids shows with an adult audience. How do you make a children's show that adults watch too? We make it for the kids. Our key audience is 4 to 6 year olds. We assume our audience can't read. So we never put important plot points in text on screen. We keep stories simple enough so we don't lose our audience. We always have to think, would a 4-year-old understand this? If not, we simplify it and make things super clear. The adult fan base is significant. If they also find it entertaining, that's great. Occasionally, we treat the adults by doing a crossover or bringing back a legacy villain. Those twists are there for the older fans, but when we do things aimed at adults, we make sure they're clear to the younger audience because they're our biggest audience. They buy the toys. Now, I do when I kind of see this, it kind of makes me think. Yeah, we know that the show is aimed at a younger audience. We know this. But I feel that with your demographics, kids can also understand a bigger plot. If you look at how Power Rangers matured over the years, then you know that it doesn't matter about the in-depth storyline. Sometimes a lot of kids just watch it for the action. They watch it for their favorite characters. They go along. But it feels more like when they're on the writing team, it'd be like if you had like the Zoe and Nate story. Well, you can't show something or other because then it goes back. And I feel that this is a really bad thing because I feel that you could easily make more interesting stories than you do than having like it dumbed down for kids on a level. Because at the end of the day, you know, everyone is going to be watching this, and I don't think that you could mess something up, because if you're going for a 4-year-old, then maybe you should be changing the entire thing to the point where, you know, it's, you know, just like, hey, you're the number monster and you're taking all the numbers from the world. I am, Rangers. I'm going to take all the numbers, and that's how it's going to be. I've taken the numbers. Oh no, can you count, audience, and do that sort of thing? I feel like you could push the boundaries a little bit more, as well as kind of like adult it up at the same time. Like when kids watch Adventure Time or shows very similar to that nature, it's not to the point where they dumb it down for kids. They make the stories interesting. You know, you've had stuff in Adventure Time such as like love interests and how relationships work and how this works. And a lot of time kids will watch these sorts of TV shows because they're entertaining. You know, you can have a more complex storyline. Not every single episode has to be aimed for that market. And yet I kind of find this statement a little bit I find it a little bit insulting. It's like, it's not the 4-year-olds that are buying the toys, it's the adults that are buying the toys for the 4-year-olds. It's not like 4-year-olds are going to be like, hey, well, thanks for that. I'm now off to my job where I'm now going to afford Power Ranger toys. I feel like the show over the years has kind of dumbed down way too much, to the point where it's more aimed at an even younger audience, where you have certain stories where you could be a bit more like the whole thing with Zoe and Nate, like you started building up that relationship over time, and then suddenly it's like they're friends at the end of the day, where a 4 to 6 year old is going to look at their parents and go, oh, I see that you've kissed on the cheek, or you've kissed on the lips, or the fact is that, you know, I can see that they're together and they understand certain relationships around that sort of angle. I find also kind of Bennett a little bit in his response here, kind of a little bit more insulting to the older fans. Like, the adult fan base is significant. That's fine. Create stories for us that we can enjoy. If they find it entertaining, that's great. Occasionally we treat the adults by doing a crossover or bringing back a legacy villain. Those twists are for the older fan, but even when we do things aimed at adults, we make sure they're clear to the younger audience because they're our biggest audience. I would kind of disagree and agree at the same time. I feel like, yes, you've got a younger audience, but you've got fans that have been following it, like myself, since the beginning, that enjoy this shit series, that enjoys everything about it. And I feel that that's the main key issue for this. I feel like you could make it for teenagers and early teens and stuff, and still have that storyline that would keep kids engrossed. Now, obviously, when I was, I think, 13 when Power Rangers first aired over in 93, or maybe a bit younger, I was still able to follow the storylines. It's not like the kids are going to be like, what's that? I don't understand. I feel like they could understand quite a bit, and they pick up on a lot of things. Also, making it more evolve around certain themes. Like, I mean, hell, like in the first a few episodes, you had emotional blackmail with Roxy and Ravi, and that's something that, you know, if you're aiming it for that age, then you'd have to explain what emotional manipulation is. And in that storyline, there's quite a few that are quite dark, and, you know, it's like, damn, you know. Also, like how character development. Anyway, there's tons of stuff that is about this, but, you know, it's fine that, you know, I feel like you could push the boundaries a bit more and do it, or maybe as we're going to make a series for the adults, but then make a kids version, like a cartoon or something like that. I think that could be a thing that you could do. But then when you say, like, would a 4-year-old understand this? And what I meant, why I feel like this is a bit insulting, is the fact is that you're treating the adult audience with the IQ of a 4-year-old to some degree. That's just the impression that I get off this. I know it's not there, I know that's not true, but this is how I kind of see it, and how, you know, by that remark, it's more like, well, you know, that's it. That's how it's very hard to explain. But from seeing this is how I kind of like acknowledge it. Most of these other things here that they talk about what's like on the show, and it's actually a very interesting interview. Especially the one thing I found here: what does the relationship with Super Sentai producers and Toei look like? The writers drive the conversation with Toei. The inventory of props and costumes is completed and goes side by side with writing. We bring a lot of costumes and props from Japan. It's normal for us to take several sets of Power Ranger costumes because we need stunt versions and spares. We bring one set from Japan. Our patterns are made from. There are also the original items that may reflect toys. We'll design them here and get Toei in Japan to build them for us because they've got the expertise. So that's kind of cool. I thought they did it all in-house. Like, they've got like prop masters and stuff like that. But we can't make helmets. These are very precious and valuable and brought from Japan. The monsters always also come from Japan. The problem with Go Busters was the time had eclipsed. Rubber had perished with beast morphers. The amount of costumes that had to be remade from scratch was more substantial than usual. And of course, like, literally, let's go on that picture. Yeah, because obviously we know. Actually, I want to go change this picture. Yeah. Yeah, we know that Go Busters was back about, I think, 9 years ago, something like that. So obviously over time the monster suits, and I'm very surprised that they still have them. I'm guessing, like, with this, like, they've kept all the suits because of the the contract that they had with Saban. So I think that's interesting that they've kept all these monster suits knocking about, but obviously how damaged they are. Now, when you mention that you can't make the helmets, I beg to differ, because I know that they can make the helmets. It's not like they get it and go, oh, I don't know how to make this. There are people out there who make helmets, so I'm sure that if you rang them and said, hey, we need you, could you do this? I'm sure some of them would be happy, and obviously it would probably cost you a little bit less, or something like that. Power Rangers has produced out of New Zealand since 2003. How does the show influence the New Zealand film and TV industry? I've provided continuity of employment. I think it has 700 crew, 1,400 actors each season. Not all full-time, but in the countryside of New Zealand, that has a big economic impact. Power Rangers provides a lot of work for the 8 months we shoot every 2 years. It keeps the skill level of the industry professionals high, because what we do is challenging and varied, and it's fun. People think highly of it and want to come back. A lot of people who work on the show have been on it for many years. And I think that's true. I think from what people have said is, yeah, there is a lot of fun on set. And I think that's really, really cool. Like, this is one thing that I would love to get into at some point. But I think it's really cool. But kind of closing this video off, I feel like this statement, this question is, I feel like you could make something more. I think that you could have more complex storylines than anything, because it shows a lot more. And I think that if you're aiming from 4 to 6, maybe you could try something new. Literally go, okay, well, we're going to make 1 or 2 stories a little bit more adult, more teenager than anything, and see what happens, and see if that show does better. Because majority of the time is, the older fans are going to watch this, and they're fans of all ages. So I think assuming it's just the 4 to 6 year old is your key target, I think you're looking at all ages. So I would write for teens, for late teens, for 4 to 6 year olds as well. I just think there's a lot more you can do. But how do you then, if you want to take this brand and move it forward a bit more, how would you do that now? How is it that you want to go now into the more adult market, with obviously going with Jonathan Entwistle and stuff like that, directing and shooting and all that, for those sorts of shows? How is this going to work? It's a very interesting whole topic, and it might be something that I might come back to at a much later date. But I kind of really wanted to talk about this, give my kind of thoughts on it and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think that it's right, it should stick to the 4 to 6 year old? Do you think that it should move on? How would you move the show on fully so it gets more views and stuff like that, bar the international airings? We know I'm going to get that sort of thing. Let me know down below in the comments, and if you like this sort of content and you want to see more, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as that cheeky notification bell to be notified when more videos drop. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.